Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes. I talk movies all day, sometimes I talk about games, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about WandaVision. This is the first of potentially many Marvel serials being produced for Disney+, so it has a lot riding on it. If this doesn't go well, there could be a lot of people out of a job. But of course it did go well, so ain't nobody gonna worry about that right now. Now this is gonna be a recap / review. I'm gonna talk about each episode, then I'm gonna give my overall thoughts on the whole series. So yes, there are going to be spoilers in this video. If you have not watched WandaVision, you're gonna wanna watch that first, and then come back to this video afterwards, unless you really don't care about spoilers. But for anybody looking for just a quick review on the series, yes, go watch it, it's good. So episode 1 gives us this 50s sitcom aesthetic. Wanda and Vision play a married couple living in a regular suburban house. Nobody knows Vision is really a robot or that Wanda has powers. The episode starts with both of them not remembering what was so special about this particular day. Wanda thought it was their anniversary, but then Vision finds out later they're supposed to have dinner with his boss. All kinds of hijinks happen as they try to hide the fact that Vision is a robot and Wanda has powers. And then towards the end, Vision's boss chokes on some food and Vision uses his robot magic to save him. But luckily for them, no one noticed it. Or did they? It was a pretty funny episode, and quite frankly, if they made a WandaVision series just like that first episode, I'd totally watch that. Also liked when Vision's boss was asking how did they get here, because that gave just a little bit of an inkling that things aren't quite what they seem. Now, we don't know what's going on yet. They could be in some kind of Truman Show experiment. Maybe they don't know they're being watched, but we know something isn't right. Now, with episode 2, I actually made a note that WandaVision sounds like one division, thinking that perhaps it might mean something that gets discovered later on, but I'll come back to that. So this is an episode where Vision is pretending to be a magician at the fair, but because he swallowed a piece of bubblegum that messed up with his internal organs, instead of him to pretend to be a magician, he uses his real robot magic. Wanda then has to use her Mind Stone magic to make it look like Vision's robot magic was fake. Wanda finds a toy helicopter outside. The helicopter is in color, whereas the rest of the world is in black and whites. Another thing letting us know that there's something going on that we just don't quite know what yet. Wanda meets one of her neighbors called Dottie and they don't quite get along, but after the magic show, Dottie thought the whole thing was just hilarious. And then Wanda is pregnant and nobody knows how because, you know, robots don't have penises. Well, actually, to be fair, some do, so... There's a strange noise, and when they go outside to see what it is, we see a man climbing out of a manhole. Wanda says no, then time starts going backwards, Wanda and Vision kiss, and everything turns to full color. So can Wanda control time? Or is she aware on some level that this world isn't real and is able to control aspects of it on some subconscious level? Is that why she got pregnant all of a sudden and everything turned to full color? Is this world like The Matrix? So episode 3 gives us this 60s sitcom aesthetic. Vision wants to keep the pregnancy a secret, but the babies are just growing too fast. In fact, they're due in 3 days. Now it's in this episode that Vision starts to think something is wrong, and later on his neighbor Herb is trying to tell him something, but he just keeps repeating himself. Also, when Vision runs to get to the doctor before he leaves for vacation, Geraldine actually says something quite interesting. So Geraldine is helping Wanda give birth, and she sees the spinning pictures and everything else and then says, I imagine there's a perfectly logical explanation for this. Now that seems like a very throwaway statement, but let me come back to that. The doctor also says something really interesting as well. Small towns are hard to escape. Again, seems like a pretty benign statement. Not quite though, is it? After the twins are born, Wanda tells Geraldine that she had a twin. Geraldine then says, he was killed by Ultron, but then doesn't seem to have any recollection of saying it. This angers Wanda and she ends up forcing her all the way back until she goes right through the Westview wall and then lands in what looks like a military compound. But yeah, small towns are hard to escape. Now episode 4 gives us a little backstory on Geraldine. In fact, her name is not Geraldine, it's Monica Rambeau, the daughter of Maria Rambeau from Captain Marvel. So Monica is working with Sword, and it was Monica that sent in the radio helicopter with a camera and it just disappeared. Monica then goes into Westview herself, and that's when she gets rewritten as Geraldine. Now remember what Geraldine said about there being a logical explanation for this? Perhaps that's because Monica knew there must be an explanation for all of this, and that was part of Monica's own memory retaining itself. Anyway, Dr. Darcy Lewis is also working with Sword, and it was Dr. Lewis that found the ways to see inside Westview using an old television. FBI agents Jimmy Woo is also dead. It was him that tried to radio into Westview saying, Wanda, can you hear me? So after Wanda sends Geraldine out of Westview and she goes back to being Monica, Monica tells them it's all Wanda. Wanda is in control of Westview. Now episode 5 is when things start to get a little bit loose. Agnes breaks kayfabe. Vision saw it, but Wanda didn't, or at least didn't care. Monica recaps her experience and says that she felt Wanda inside her head, so now they're treating Wanda like a terrorist, going with the story that Wanda broke into a top secret facility to steal Vision's body and resurrect him. The twin babies, who are now young boys, they find a dog. They call the dog Sparky. Don't get attached to the dog. Vision still has this feeling that something isn't right, and when he's talking to his colleague Norm, he frees his mind for a moment and Norm freaks out and tries to warn Vision about her. Vision puts Norm back to normal, and we're left to assume that her is Wanda. Now, Saw sent in a 1980s drone to try to talk to Wanda, but it didn't work. Wanda destroys the drone, drags it out of Westview and tells him to stay out of my home. Now, Vision knows that Wanda is doing something with people's minds. They argue and then the doorbell rings and Wanda says it wasn't her. When they go to answer it, it's Pietro, except it's not Pietro, it's Quicksilver from the Fox Marvel movies. Now, this is where the internet goes wild with all kinds of theories of what could happen. Because of course, we know that Disney bought Fox and now have rights to the Fox Marvel movies. We also know that before Disney bought Fox, he was called Quicksilver in the X-Men movies and Pietro in the Marvel movies. And although in the comics they're the same person, in the movies they had pretty different backstories. But Pietro in the Marvel movies got killed by Ultron. Quicksilver in the Fox Marvel movies did not. So if Quicksilver is turning up in the MCU, is there going to be some multiverse, different dimension type thing going on? Well, that waits to be seen. Episode 6. Pietro is living with them, it's Halloween, Vision and Wanda are dressed in their classic outfits. Rambo, Darcy and Jimmy get fired by Hayward. Hayward is the sword director. But if you watch enough movies, you know anytime some kind of law enforcement, government agent body type person gets fired, all it really means is that they're still doing the same job, but behind their boss's back, and I guess they're not actually getting paid for it. So, I don't know, this sounds like a bad idea to be honest. Now Vision might be breaking free of Wanda's control. In fact, later on he tries to escape Westview, but he's getting torn apart while doing so. So Wanda expands the borders to save him, and in doing so also brings Dr. Darcy inside the Westview borders. But not before Darcy figured out that Westview had changed Monica on a molecular level. Episode 7, everything's just going crazy. The game that the kids are playing, the milk, everything just keeps changing eras. Sort of lost the signal with the Westview broadcast, and Vision wakes up in a circus and everyone thinks he's a clown. And, well, yeah. And is Wanda just losing her mind? Was the expansion too much for her? Now, Monica and Jimmy, they go to see some Sword members who are loyal to Monica's mother. They give her an armored truck to try and drive into the Westview anomaly with, but, you know, that didn't work. Then Monica decides to run straight into Westview without the truck, but doesn't get rewritten. Anyway, inside Westview, Vision and Darcy had already met, and Vision put Darcy's mind back to being Darcy. Now, Wanda's neighbor Agnes had agreed to look after her twin boys, but, as it turns out, Agnes had ulterior motives. When Wanda goes down to Agnes's basement to check on her boys, Agnes reveals herself as Agatha Harkness. And it was Agatha all along, responsible for all the bad things, and Pietro, and she killed Sparky. Now in this episode, we actually get a mid-credit scene where Monica tries to break into the basement but is confronted by Pietro. Now episode 8 gives us a little bit of a backstory on Agatha Harkness. Salem, Massachusetts, 1693. Agatha Harkness was accused of betraying her coven. She denies it. She didn't break the rules, just bent her power. But she's condemned to death by her coven, which is led by her mother. They try, but they're just not strong enough to kill Agatha, and Agatha ends up absorbing all of their powers and killing them. Now, back in modern times, Agatha, while protected by her runes, tells Wanda that Pietro was fake, or Pietro. In fact, his real name is Ralph Boner. So I guess this wasn't some multiverse, interdimensional crossover in the end. It was just a dick joke. I can respect that. Now, Agatha takes Wanda on a trip through memory lane, where we see Wanda and her family watching the Dick Van Dyke Show and other sitcoms, their home getting bombed, Wanda joining an anti-freedom organization, volunteering to touch the Mind Stone where no one had previously survived, the Avengers compound with Vision watching Malcolm in the Middle, and for one of the greatest lines in the whole series, what is grief, if not love persevering? That line hit on so many levels, and I think anybody who's ever been through grief after a loss felt that. Anyway, after Vision dies, Wanda goes to get Vision's body back, or at least that's what we think. Well, that's what I thought anyway, I don't know about you. Turns out she wasn't trying to get the body back, she just wanted to give him a proper burial. Director Hayward, on the other hand, was already dismantling Vision's body. But after Wanda leaves, she goes to the plot of land in Westview where their home was supposed to be, and in her grief, and perhaps anger, creates the fake Westview that we see, along with a fake Vision that is now attached to the Westview world, which is why he wasn't able to leave it. And in doing so takes over the minds of everybody in that Westview vicinity, rewriting them to play parts in her own story. But Agatha knows what Wanda is, and she says that Vision, her kids, and the whole of Westview is chaos magic, which means Wanda is the Scarlet Witch. We then get a mid-credit scene letting us know that reason why Hayward was dismantling Vision's body is because he was trying to bring him back. And he does. Except he's not colored anymore, he's white. Is that a racist thing, or? Episode 9, the final episode, Wanda versus Agatha. White Vision turns up in Westview and tries to kill Wanda. Vision saves Wanda, and then Vision and White Vision have a fight. Agatha believes that the Scarlet Witch is destined to destroy the world, and she releases everyone from Wanda's mind control. Wanda then opens up Westview to let the people out, but in doing so, Hayward's team goes in, and also Vision and the kids are being torn apart because they need the Westview world, so she has to pull it back. But Hayward, being a bare bad mind, he tries to shoot the twins. Monica steps in the way and she has these powers that absorb the bullets. Vision realizes that he can't beat White Vision in the arm wrestle, so instead of trying to best him physically, he tries to best him intellectually. They talk about the ship of Theseus and the concept of how many parts need to be removed and replaced before it stops being the original thing, which kind of reminds me of the joke from Only Fools and Horses. Anyway, White Vision realizes he's the real Vision and then flies away. Agatha tries to take Wanda's power, but Wanda had already cast runes of her own, so Wanda takes Agatha's power and turns Agatha into Agnes, the nosy neighbor. Wanda then takes down her Westview, and along with it goes Vision and her twins. The authorities turn up and Wanda flies away to avoid getting arrested. There's a mid-credit scene where Jimmy's organizing the investigation / cleanup and Hayward gets arrested. Somebody comes to see Monica saying that she's an old friend of her mother's and that he'd like to meet her. Turns out this person is a shape-shifting scroll, and although they don't say who he is, I guess the most obvious assumption is that it's Nick Fury. We then get a post-credit scene with Wanda living alone in a remote place reading The Darkhold, which is a witch book which contains witch spells, of which no witch should be using. So going back to what I said about WandaVision sounding like one division and how that might mean something later on, yeah, it turns out it didn't. Or did it? I mean, look, this is a bit of a stretch, but the Westview that Wanda created divided the real world from the fake world, so there was one division. And even more of a stretch, White Vision had his memories repressed. Now in the UK, where Paul Bettany is from by the way, div is a slang word for idiot, which means there was one div vision. I'm just saying, I kinda got it right. Anyway, let me go for a few things that I liked about WandaVision. I liked that it unveils the story gradually, but let you know right from the beginning that not all is as it seems. One of the theories going around was that WandaVision would link to the Multiverse of Madness, the Doctor Strange movie, and it just might with the way it ended with Wanda reading the Darkhold, but not in the way that most people were thinking with Pietro being involved. My guess is they knew bringing Evan Peters in would set off all kinds of theories, so they just did that as kind of a red herring, as a little bit of a troll, as a little bit of a ha ha. But hey, it worked for me. The Agatha reveal is pretty cool, and I think that Agatha all along me might be around for a good while to come. And the Vision versus Vision intellectual battle after the physical battle, that's not something you see too often. Now as for things I didn't like, I don't think I could really fault it on anything, to be honest, not objectively anyway. For me, the pacing, the story, the developments, the reveals, the ending, unless I go into nitpicking territory, it was pretty spot on. But if I was to nitpick, after the White Vision figured out that he's the real Vision, since he was tasked with destroying Vision, shouldn't he have just torn his own head off? Just saying. Now it was announced that WandaVision is going to be a one-off series, which wasn't all too surprising considering the way it was progressing. I mean, there's only so many sitcom eras and they went through most of them pretty quickly. But the way it ended with Wanda doing her Thanos impression, they could make another season, perhaps exploring what Wanda does next and whether or not she forms a relationship with White Vision, but my guess is they'd want to save that kind of thing for the upcoming movies. And honestly, some things are best just one and done. So overall, I definitely enjoyed the WandaVision series, looking forward to see what they do with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I've heard some interesting things about that and the trailer looked awesome, so bring it on. And that's what I think of WandaVision. What do you think of WandaVision? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.